All right, we just mentioned what Luka did against the Clippers. Well, how about Terance Mann of LA? He's been impressive recently. For example, last time out here, Garion, against Golden State, scores a career-high 25 points and puts up over 40 DK fantasy points at just $4,300 in salary. Tonight, he'll cost you 4-6 against Phoenix. So chase or fade for me, dude. He's a top value play. His salary at this time, like last week, was more than $1,000 less. So it's on the rise here, Gare Bear.
Yeah, you have to chase this. I mean, is he my favorite value play? Maybe not, but he is a top value play. I mean, the one concerning thing about the Clippers all season long has just been how really inconsistent their rotations have been. They kind of have like 7 or 8 players who are almost the exact same person, and you never really knew how that was going to translate to that night's rotation. But with Norman Powell now out for an indefinite period of time, with Eric Bledsoe not part of this team anymore, they just don't have a lot of guard depth. And, you know, you look at Mann in the 2 games since Powell got hurt, he's averaging 35 minutes and he's averaging 1.13 DraftKings points per minute. So if you're going to have that type of volume at a sub 5K price tag, you know, we're not reinventing the wheel here. He's just going to be viable. That's simply the way the math works. So I'll shout out like James Bouknight, I think is a really nice play. Been averaging about 20 minutes per game at a high usage when he's been healthy lately. I think Jordan Nwora, regardless of whether or not Giannis Antetokounmpo plays tonight, is a really good value play at the absolute minimum. But yeah, Mann is someone who you're going to have to put in a couple lineups.
All right, Matty, one of the Clippers' top 2 threats here on offense because of all the injuries they're dealing with.
Yeah, and the other injury they have is Luke Kennard, who didn't play last night. He's likely going to be questionable for today, too. So if he's out, then it's just Mann kind of has to play a ton. The only reason I'm not necessarily going all in on him, even though I do think he's currently the best value play, is just this could be a slate where we have tons and tons of value, and there might just be other good options that we don't know about yet. So, for instance, if Butler doesn't play, Gabe Vincent, Caleb Martin, some other guys like that, Max Strus. But as it stands, I think, yeah, you have to look to the Clippers. If you want to fade Mann for ownership, Nick Batum is cheap, Amir Coffey's cheap. Those guys are in the mid-3,000s. So I think pivoting down to one of those 2 guys makes some sense. But you kind of have to have a Clipper, I think, in some capacity. And then if Luke Kennard plays, I think he's viable too.
Nick, you see some similar production out of him tonight as we saw last night against Golden State. So chase or fade for me, he's a top value play.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it comes down to Luke Kennard. If Luke Kennard does not play, then we're almost locking in Terance Mann, I think, for 35 to 40 minutes again because Norman Powell's hurt. They sent out Eric Bledsoe in that trade to Portland. I mean, he's kind of the last man standing at shooting guard. It's him and Amir Coffey. So I really haven't been the biggest fan of Terance Mann this season. It felt like he had like 1.5 good games in the playoffs, and everybody decided that he was this next like up-and-coming borderline all-star. And he's kind of been disappointing. You know, anybody who drafted him in season long probably dropped him within the first few weeks of the season. I mean, even before this little stretch that he's had here, his last 4 games, his previous 20 games, he averaged 8.8 points per game on 29% shooting from 3. Like, he really hasn't been that good this season, but you take away all the other options at guard, and all of a sudden he's playing a ton of minutes, and he becomes viable. So again, if Luke Kennard sits, I like Terance Mann. But like Matt just said, you know, the rostership is going to be high. People are kind of on the scent now. So you may want to consider pivoting there. I actually like Isaiah Hartenstein if you want to value play at center on the Clippers. I think he benefits quite a bit from Serge Ibaka landing in Milwaukee. They were kind of running that weird 3-center system where Ty Lue said, whoever plays the best in the first half is going to play in the second half. That was a nightmare for fantasy purposes. Now it's just down to Hardenstein and Zubac.